Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live about what happens in therapy. I think that this is a really important topic because so many people end up thinking that therapy is just a really fast process, or they're wondering why things aren't happening faster for them or for their child who's in therapy. Sometimes there's some preconceived notions about how long therapy should take or about what the process should look like. And so I thought today we could look together at really what to expect as you participate in therapy, or as your child participates in therapy, or as someone that you love participates in therapy. It can be a little bit difficult to kind of make it be one thing and to understand it as one process, because therapy is a bit different for everyone. But there are some pretty normal milestones to think about as you're going through the therapeutic process. So today I wanted to make sure that we got to talk some about what that looks like. Again, the big thing to understand is that therapy is different for every single person, and depending on why they've come to therapy, or what they're hoping to get out of therapy, it can be a bit different for every single person. But there are some things to look for overall. There are some basic stages. Now, I am a child therapist. My name is Stuart Perry. I go by Mister Stu, especially here, but I'm a child therapist, and I use a modality that's called child-centered play therapy, or CCPT. I also have a German Shepherd who works with me. His name is Stark. Many of you have met him before. And so we are trained together in what's called animal-assisted play therapy. We do animal-assisted, child-centered play therapy, or child-centered animal-assisted play therapy. It can be said either way. And really, the basic fundamentals of that is just that the child, or our client, gets to lead the session. When a session starts, I don't really know where it's going to go. I might have an idea of what the child needs to work on in order to accomplish their goal, things like that. But as far as what exactly to do, the child gets to make the decisions there. And because of that, there are some stages of play therapy. And we have a new resource on the MisterStuTV.com website that explains this a bit. And it talks a lot about what to expect in therapy. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. But if you go to MisterStuTV.com and click on resources, you can click on a link that says Stages to Expect in Therapy. And that document will walk you through exactly what we're going to be talking about today. It has the different names for the different phases. Yes, buddy. And it talks a lot about what to expect in each phase. So let's jump right in. The first phase of therapy, especially for children, is what's called the exploratory stage. And this is the stage where children are really just learning their therapist. They are learning what's expected of them in the therapeutic process, and they're learning how to express themselves to their therapist. There's a lot of different testing that happens in this phase, where if a child is wanting to play with a certain toy, they kind of learn what's accepted or what's not accepted with the different toys, about the limits that are set. Now, in child-centered play therapy, there are very few limits that get set as part of the therapeutic process, because it's important for children to have the freedom to explore. So if it's not going to harm themselves, harm someone else, or if it's not going to damage any of the property, then children are really given free rein to kind of play with things as they desire, and to explore in the playroom as they would like. And that's why it's called the exploratory stage. It kind of allows children to figure out what to expect, to explore the area. Now, as they are working through that phase, you can expect, yes, Stark, you can expect that children are going to love going to therapy each week. They're going to be excited to show up each week as they are learning this new thing. Children love to learn. Oh, and it looks like I'm going to be able to pull this up, but children love to learn and they are excited to do different things. Let's see here. We're going to put that. And let's see. Yeah, so children are excited to learn about different things. They are expectant of having a good time and being able to express themselves in new and different ways. So you can expect that your child will be excited about the therapeutic process. Let's see here. I'm going to shrink this down some. Okay, so that's the exploratory stage, and that stage typically happens for about 4 to 6 weeks. Now, as your child is working through that, it could take different amounts of time depending on the child. It could also be longer or shorter. So we say about 4 to 6 weeks. What that means is that the child is really learning how to make it in therapy. They are learning how to progress through the therapeutic process. And this is also the time where they learn if they feel like they can or cannot trust their therapist. A lot of times parents will tell me like, well, I don't know why they're not talking to you about their abuse or their trauma yet. And we're on session 3. Well, it's likely that because of some of the things that have happened, it's difficult for them to learn to open up. Also, I'm a grown man, so it would also be a sign of a problem if the child was able to immediately take to me and trust me without any sort of preconceived notion about talking to a grown man. So as children are learning the therapist, learning the materials, learning the process, it's important to give them some time, to let them have some of those sessions where really it's not a whole lot of work being done. They're just kind of beginning to learn the process. This is true for adults in therapy as well. So many times adults will think, well, I'm just going to go to a session, or I'm going to go to a few sessions, and then everything will be fine and good and I won't need help anymore. Well, that's not typically how it goes. For about your first 4 to 6 sessions, you're just going to be learning about your therapist and learning how to interact with them, learning what works, what doesn't work. And that's all part of that exploratory stage. Let's see here. It looks like I'm going to be able to show you. Yes, great. Okay, so that first phase is that exploratory stage, and you're going to see some pretty significant growth. If you look at this chart, there's a line that goes through the middle that says level of presenting problem. And basically that means the level of the problem of why you came to therapy in the first place. So the further up we get away from that line, it means the more improvement you're seeing in your child. As you get closer to that middle line, that means the child may be regressing some. And then if it goes below that line, it actually means that things get more intense or different, or it may seem like the child has regressed to a point even beyond the point where they first came to therapy, where things are just seeming different and strange. So if you look during that exploratory stage, there's a lot of initial growth that happens. And there is a point where a lot of people quit coming to therapy without finishing therapy because everything seems better. It seems like, oh, well, everything is resolved. I don't need therapy anymore. And that's where you can see that letter B. So from A to B is the exploratory stage. And a lot of times there, you'll see this really quick, really fast growth in that first 4 to 6 weeks. And a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm done now and I don't need to come back to therapy. Don't do that. It's kind of like when you are taking pills from a doctor, you don't want to quit taking the pills until you're out of pills. The same is true for therapy. You don't want to stop coming to therapy until you have fully finished your treatment. And as you do that, you and your therapist can decide on what goals and objectives need to be met in order for you to be finished with the therapeutic process. So don't stop coming to therapy until you've graduated or finished the therapeutic process. If you stop when you're at that point at the top, then a lot of times what will happen is you'll lose all of that growth, and things will come back right down to how they were when you first started in therapy. So that's phase one. Let's talk about the second piece that you'll see on that document. If you go to MisterStuTV.com, click on resources, and then click on stages to expect in therapy. Let's see here. So then the second part is that the child will be testing for protection. You'll see that there's a fast drop off there. So during that exploratory stage, you'll see a lot of growth, a lot of great things happening. It'll be like, oh, we don't even need therapy anymore. And then you'll see a period where the child tests for protection. This could be part of that initial 4 to 6 weeks, or it could be part of that next phase that we'll talk about here in just a moment. But testing for protection basically just means that the child is trying to figure. Oh, we're back. All right, great. So sorry about that. We had a bit of a technical issue. Anyway, the child will be figuring out, can I really trust this person? Is this process really going to work? And it's important. It's important there for the child to be able to find out, is this going to be something that's going to be beneficial? Is this something that really will make a difference for me? Because if it's not going to make a difference for me, then I don't really have any need to participate. Let's see here. Yeah, then I don't really have any need to participate in this. So that's that testing for protection. Am I really safe here? Is the therapist really going to do what they say they're going to do? Are they really going to treat me the way that they say they're going to treat me? And are they really capable of helping? This can also be a time where you'll see some difficult behaviors from the child, especially if you are the therapist. If you are the therapist in this phase, you might start to see some behaviors that are a bit concerning in the playroom. And the reason for that is the child is trying to figure out, are you competent? Are you able to help me in the ways that I need to be helped? Because if you're not going to be able to help me, I don't want to open up. I'm not going to take this any further than what you're prepared for. So the child is really trying to figure out, are you the one? Is this the one for me? And as they learn that, it could be that you see some difficult behaviors as they're trying to figure it out. As we there we go. As we open back up to see this document, you can see that it could feel like things drop back to where, oh my gosh, therapy doesn't work at all. We're back to this level of the presenting problem being right back to where it was when we first started therapy. So this therapy stuff must not even work, because if it did, we'd be seeing growth and difference. So that's that testing for protection phase. Then next that comes up is what's called the dependency stage. And the dependency stage is one where you will start to have a child that will be expressing their needs. Basically, they're showing, this is what I need from you. And you'll see it the level of the problem actually drops down below where things were when you first came to therapy. What that means is that things are going to get worse and weird for a while. So if you're tracking through, there's that exploratory stage. And during that stage, things get great. And it's almost like, oh my gosh, therapy is a miracle. I don't need to come here anymore. Then there's the testing for protection where things drop back and it seems like, oh my goodness, what happened? I thought we were coming to therapy. I thought therapy was going to be helpful. Then you drop down into the dependency stage where things actually get worse and weird. You might start to see some things that are completely uncharacteristic for your child. You might start to see more emotional outbursts. You might even start to see more aggression. And the reason for that, the reason for those things is that our brains are not made to adapt to change very well. Our brains are created to follow patterns. And our brains love patterns. They think that they're the best. And so anytime there's a change, even if it's positive change, even if it's growing change, and even if it's change that makes life better, the brain is saying, look, I know that this might feel better, but we knew we were going to survive how things were before. So let's just go back to that. What the child's brain is doing is making any final last-ditch effort attempt to go back to how things were. So again, what will happen is during that exploratory stage, you'll see things go way up and it's like, oh my gosh, therapy is a miracle. This is amazing. Then things drop down and it's almost like, oh my goodness, why did we even come to therapy? It didn't help at all. And at this point, you're about 6 sessions or 6 weeks in. Then things will actually start to get worse or weird, where the child might become more aggressive, more emotionally, it might seem like emotionally unstable. You might see more tears, more aggression, where things get worse and weird. And then you move in to what's called the therapeutic growth stage. Now, the therapeutic growth stage is the longest phase of therapy. It's also the one where you're going to see the most lasting growth from the child or from the person who's participating in therapy. This is the phase where things really start to stick and click because the child's brain or the person's brain has learned that, yes, things are different than how they used to be, but it's safe. It's safe to be different. And so now that we see that things are better and they're different, we're willing to apply these differences and really make them stick. This therapeutic growth phase can last for about 10 weeks. It can go up to about 10 weeks of time where the child is growing and learning. So again, there's that first initial 6-ish weeks where they're learning. And then there's that dependency stage. That one's the shortest. It's typically about 2 to 3 weeks. So then we're to weeks 6 to 9. Then we're in that phase of worse and weird, that dependency stage. That goes until about week 12. And then you get to the therapeutic growth stage, which is between about weeks 12 to 20, 12 to 22. And that's where you'll see some lasting growth start to happen. It's a really exciting phase in therapy because you'll see a lot of growth that you've been wanting. It's where the therapist and the child have really learned each other. They understand how therapy is going to work. The child knows that they can trust the therapist. The therapist believes and knows that they can trust the child. And because of that trust, there's some real growth that starts to happen, some big and lasting growth. So again, it's kind of like this roller coaster, that exploratory stage. Oh my goodness, therapy is a miracle. We don't even need to come here anymore. That was fast. Then you drop down and test for protection, where the child says, okay, you are fun, but can I trust you? And you drop back down and it can feel like, oh my goodness, why did we even come to therapy? This doesn't work. Things are not different at all. And then you can get really frustrated during that dependency stage where the child is expressing their needs because the child is showing, hey, here's really what's going on. I know that these are all the symptoms, but here's really what's underlying. And so you can see that things get worse and weird. If you'll stay consistent through that phase, then you move right into that therapeutic growth phase where you'll see some lasting growth start to happen. Then the final phase in therapy is what's called the termination stage. What happens in the termination stage is that the child has now met a new plateau, or the person has now met a new plateau. You came to therapy for one reason. There was a problem, there was a goal. And so the therapist goes through that exploratory stage where things get better. Then they get testing for protection where it seems like things are just back to how they were. Then you go through that dependency stage where things get worse and weird. Then you go through the therapeutic growth stage where you see some lasting growth for about 10 weeks of just growing. And then you'll reach a new plateau or a new baseline for different behaviors that are happening. When that happens, that is the therapist's job to notice, hey, we're at a new baseline. We've resolved the problem that you came here for. And now it's time for us to either focus on growing even further, or it's time to terminate the therapeutic process. What can happen if someone is in therapy for too long is that they can start to depend on their therapist and believe that the therapist is the one who did the work, instead of believing that the work had already been done inside of them, that they were the ones who did the work, and the therapist was just kind of like the conduit. The therapist was just the bouncing wall to be able to bounce ideas off of, bounce thoughts off of, and to understand things in a new and different way. The client is the one who is doing the work. The therapist is the one who helps facilitate that work. So what can happen if someone is in therapy for too long is they can start to believe that they need the therapist in order to continue, that they need the therapist. Without the therapist, they're not going to be able to function. So it's important that once you've reached that new baseline or that new plateau, that you either decide to focus on a new goal or to terminate therapy, at least for the time being. Now, at MisterStuTV, we believe that everyone should have a therapist. So that means that no, you are never far away from being able to get back into therapy if you need to. But there may be a time where you can take a break for an extended period of time. It could be years that you go without needing your therapist. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect and 100%, but it means that you have learned how to work through different problems on your own. And then if something else comes up in the future, now you've got that new baseline where you can start the process all over again. You're not back to that first presenting problem. Now you have a new presenting problem that is a higher level problem that then you can move through, and you can go through the exploratory stage. Then you can test for protection in that phase. Then you can go to the dependency stage in that problem. Then you can work through some therapeutic growth with that problem. And then you can reach termination for that problem. And the process can then repeat itself. This document that you see on the screen right now is available at MisterStuTV.com. That's MisterStuTV.com. And if you click on resources and then click on stages to expect in therapy, then you'll get this document here. It's just a great reminder that therapy is not a flat line, and it's also not just a consistent growth upwards. It kind of goes up and then down and then up, and then it can terminate. Now, the important thing to remember is that people are also full of surprises. So just because this is the way that the document is laid out does not mean that it's just this perfect up and then down and then up and then you're good. It's not how it works in real life, but this is a great conceptual model of what happens in therapy, that it doesn't just stay like this, and it doesn't just trend upwards the whole time, that you can expect some quick growth and then, oh my goodness, why did we even come here? Nothing, it doesn't even work. Oh my goodness, this is worse and weird. And after that worse and weird time, then you can start to see some real therapeutic growth and prepare yourself for termination, or what we in therapy call discharge. Hopefully this helped you understand a little bit more about what to expect in therapy. That again, it's not just a flat line. It's not just a consistent trend upwards, but it does have a lot of phases to it. If you need to refer back to that document, again, go to MisterStuTV.com, click on resources, then click on stages to expect in therapy, and you'll see that document come up. Hopefully this was helpful for you, your child, your loved one, to understand exactly what's going on in therapy. Now, in 2 weeks, I am doing another Facebook Live. It will be on January 22nd at 5 p.m. And I'm going to do another Facebook Live. This one is called Parents, Give Yourself Grace. Hopefully you will join me for that one. This is just an encouraging session for parents as you are jumping into this new year with your child or your children. Hopefully it will help you just to be excited about the year to come and to be able to understand different things that go on as part of being a parent. So please join me in 2 weeks for Parents, Give Yourself Grace. I hope that you'll be back here at Facebook Live. And again, if you'd like to refer back to what we talked about today, go to MisterStuTV.com, click on resources, and then click on stages to expect in therapy. So sorry for the technical difficulties that happened during this session, but hopefully you were able to get something out of it. And hopefully it's helpful for you and your loved ones as you all participate in therapy. Remember, it's okay to ask for help, and sometimes that help needs to be professional. Therapy is not a punishment, and everyone should have a therapist, at least at some point in their lives. It's just a time to be able to talk with someone different about what's going on in your life and really learn some skills to be able to help yourself moving forward. So I hope that if you know someone who might need some help, you'll refer them to therapy and help them through their process as they learn to grow. And then it seems like things are tough. Keep encouraging them. Then it seems like things have gotten even worse. Keep encouraging them. And then as they continue to grow, praise them, give them some, give them some mad props for sticking with the process. And then when they're ready for termination, make sure you celebrate that with them. Thanks so much for joining me here on Facebook Live at 5. I'll see you back again in 2 weeks for Parents, Give Yourself Grace. Until then, peace, much love, share the love. Bye-bye.